Deirdre, are you ready for us to call to order? All right, I see
Yes.
you are. All right, I'm going to call us to order. This is the Town of Millis Finance Committee meeting of Wednesday, February 24th at 7 o'clock. I'm Jody Garzon, the chair. With us, we have Pete Berube, Joyce Boyardi, Doug Riley, Katie Tu, Kathy McGinnis, Jim Borgman, Craig Schultz, Sean Power, and we also have Town Administrator Mike Gazinski and Finance Director Carol Johnson with us, as well as DPW Director Jim McKay and Deirdre, who keeps us all organized and is just absolutely fabulous. So hopefully I got everyone's title correct, because if I don't see a prompt, it's whatever's in my head. Tonight's agenda is we're going to start off talking electing officers for the next year, and then we're going to review the select board's fiscal year 2022 operating budget priorities, and then we'll get a snow and ice budget update from Jim McKay. And looks like we have a request to authorize spending in excess of the appropriation for the snow and ice budget. And then we're gonna, Mr. Gazinski is gonna review some possible reserve fund transfer requests and go through the town meeting warrant articles as they currently stand. And then we'll have a brief discussion of starting to put together the Finance Committee's policies and procedures handbook, because we're kind of lacking in that. And then I think that's all we have for business. Then we'll approve the minutes from the two tri-board meetings that we've had, January 28th and February 18th. So with all of that being said, let's move to the election of officers. Right now, I am the chair, Pete Berube is vice chair, and we have Doug Riley serving as secretary or clerk. I don't remember. Clerk, there we go. Thanks to Deirdre, it's at the top of our agenda. So I am interested in stepping down as chair for the coming year. I have a lot on my plate right now, and it's hard to give adequate time and focus to the important things that we have to discuss. So I would welcome any nominations or anyone stepping forward who would like to take the position of chair.
Don't everybody talk at once.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Kathy.
I was just wondering if it's normal procedure like other boards, if the vice chair just, moves over to the right.
We don't have a typical procedure, but
Okay.
Often if no one is raising their hand, someone such as myself might nominate our vice chair to step into the role of
I think
chair.
it's usually the person who speaks first. And
Yeah, there you go. Everyone's got.
Oh, no.
Kathy, congratulations.
But, unless hearing from anyone else, and, I'd let Pete Berube speak to being appointed to the chairmanship or
I
chairship.
second that.
I'm certainly willing, but the rest of the story is that I've also pulled to run for select board. So it could be a short tenure.
And we typically try to do a 2-year. Once, because of unfortunate accidents, I did a 5-year tenure. Every time I had somebody lined up, something happened. But yeah, usually we try to do a 2-year tenure, but I understand. So whatever we need to do, having somebody is more important than having nobody.
True.
Other than a short term, actually,
Right. Well, we have a nomination for Pete if you're willing to step in as chair for a time, and if you end up, elected for a select board, then we can reorganize again.
As I said, I'm more than willing, and but just being upfront that I did pull paperwork. I know at least one person that I'm running against, which gives me less than a 50% chance. And I'm fine with, I hope that both would happen, but I know both can't. So
And I pulled papers as well, and I,
That's what,
yeah, can't do that and run and be employed.
Well, would Doug be willing to, since didn't pull papers for select board?
Well, I
Doug,
think
you
there's a
pull
motion
papers,
on
and
the
it's
floor.
much better to do that than run. No, than be the chair, yeah. No,
Doug,
I
were
think
you
there's
going
a
to say
motion and a
something?
second on the floor.
I was gonna say, I have too many other things going on. I have multiple committees between here, club, church, and then my work schedule has changed because I had a change in my role. So,
I'll make a proposal. If Pete runs for chair, I can go for vice chair. Since we both can't win, it gives a nice transition one way or the other. Either he stays on or I move up, if that works for people.
That sounds good to me.
sounds logical.
Cover our bases. And
Kathy, would you be interested in being chair?
No, I think being a member of something is more effective, with all due respect to Jody.
No worries. You know, we've quite a few of us have had, you know, a good number of years, some more than others, Craig, of experience on the finance committee. So,
Right.
all right. Well, all those in favor of, I guess, electing Pete as chair of finance committee, please say or indicate aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Any abstaining? I
Mute
suppose-
Pete.
Yeah.
Aye.
All right. I will just continue through this election and then I'll step aside and Pete can run the rest of the meeting. We have Craig Schultz has offered to step forward to be vice chair. So that is on the docket now. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right. And clerk, Doug, are you willing to continue on or would someone else like to step forward as clerk?
Given the extreme requirements of the role, if no one else wants to do it, I'm okay.
What is the role of clerk?
The role of clerk is to take minutes if Deirdre is not available.
Okay, that's what I thought.
run the meeting if the two other people aren't available.
it's much
Okay.
like vice chair, actually.
What'd you say, Pete?
I said it's much like the role of vice chair.
Ah, yes.
Vice chair is probably the easiest because you don't have to worry about minutes on the off chance that somebody can't make it.
All right. Well, all those in favor of Doug continuing on as clerk, please say or indicate aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right. So those are our officers and I'm going to hand it over to Pete.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We're just gonna head right on to the next topic, which was review the select board's 2022 operating budget priorities. And let's see, that's by Mike. Are you covering that or no? The select board's 20. I gotta look at that document.
I actually, I'm at home. I don't have that list right in front of me. I didn't know if Deirdre had that to put up on the screen, or if anyone else in the committee has a copy of that. I'd be happy to speak
I'm
to it.
meeting material. Why don't we skip it now? Let's skip that for now and we'll go. If we find it, Deirdre, we'll come back to it.
Is there a summary sheet for that, or is it just all the individual links on the website?
There is a summary,
Is it just me?
Oh,
You can't understand?
Can't
that
understand a
item,
word
the
you're
select board-
saying.
I'm not sure if that was put out at the tri-board meeting or not. I can't
Oh,
remember
yeah.
now.
Froze
I've
up.
had too many meetings, I think, to remember the detail.
Hey, Mike, we missed most of what you said there just because of a lag or kind of an internet stutter. So
Okay. I think that might have been put out at the distributed at the tri-board meeting? Does anyone remember that? The list, there's a memo list.
And Mike, I'm going to suggest something from my old IT days. If you turn off your camera, sometimes you can make your bandwidth a little better, and we might be able to.
I just did.
Okay.
I just did.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Oh, I got
Yeah,
it
I'm
here.
suffering from
Yeah.
I'm suffering from a bandwidth problem here, apparently. Usually I don't.
Yeah, right out.
So
It
I-
was sent
I
out on
believe-
the 18th.
I believe a summary went out. Did the folks that attended the tri-board meeting remember seeing any of that?
I'm looking now.
I do not have meeting materials from the 18th.
So
So if if the committee doesn't mind, you can move on to snow and ice, and I think I can find it in my emails and I could send it to Deirdre.
If you would, let's do that. Okay, so if Jim McKay is ready to go, we'll
Sure.
move on. Nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Congratulations on your election. And this is usually a rite of passage that we come and ask the Finance Committee and the Select Board to extend the spending for snow and ice. Last year, we were lucky we did not have to do that, but this year, I think you've all have the document in front of you. I can just briefly go through them. This year, it's actually a little more, we're showing everything of snow and ice removal. The only thing that is not in here is the school overtime budget for whatever they do for their staff for taking care of their sidewalks. The town buildings, there's 3 people that work shoveling the sidewalks for the police, fire, town hall, library, and the fire station. They take care of their own property. This is the first year we've added that in here, and you can see that in the expense line and in the overtime line item. So last year we turned over the snow and ice budget did return money to the general fund, and it was in excess of, I think it was like almost $12,000. But that also left the shed, the salt shed, empty. And I think if you look at the second page of the document, you'll see that December 11th, we did fill it up. This year we had a very good price of $43.18. I believe that was like $1, almost $2 cheaper than the previous year. So far we've used 1,867.31 tons of rock salt. We usually ask when we put our numbers in for the bid, which is it's a consortium of multiple. There's almost like 26 different towns. We ask for 2,250 tons of rock salt. The overall budget, snow and ice expenses is budgeted for $170,727. Expended to date. It hasn't been paid out yet because we're here to ask, and I'm sure that's in the next motion, that we can, spend this we can run the budget in deficit until the town meeting appropriates the funds. So we've expended $269,979.37. So that leaves a deficit in snow, ice, and expenses of $99,252.37. In the snow and ice expenses, that's all the equipment that pays for all the rock salt, that pays for the contractors. It pays for repairs to the vehicles. This year we did have a big expense of $9,000 for replacing a plow for the front end loader. It broke, and we had to replace that. I mean, to take that machine offline is we just couldn't do it. We have to have it. So the salaries is next, the snow and ice salaries. So that takes care of all the DPW And one has to remember, there's only 11 people that plow for the town. And, you know, through contractual agreements, they, after 12 hours of straight time work, their pay goes to double time, and it stays that way until there's a break in their, till they go home. So if they're here, if they come in on a Monday morning at 7 o'clock, when they work the 12 hours, you know, the 8 hours is straight time, 4 hours is time and a half, and everything after that 13th hour until they go home is double time, which 3 of these storms, there was one in December, and there was another one, I think in January, that were 2 days straight. This last 6-inch snowstorm was probably one of the most expensive snowstorms that the town's ever experienced, for 6 inches of snow. And that being because, you know, if one took a ride out at any time during the, you know, the storm, the roads were always passable, always ready for anybody to use them. If we don't have the ability, because of the size of staff of surrounding towns, like I said, we have 11 staff members, you know, to send half of them home, it just wouldn't be feasible. I mean, we would have lost the entire storm, and it would have cost more to come back in and clean up, and the roads wouldn't have been safe enough. I do want to say that if anybody in the public ever listens to this, for us to go out and salt the roads, we directly get direction from the Millis PD. They call us, they call the on-call person, they call me, and then we dispatch the crews from that time. It's been the way it's worked in this town since I've been here, and I think it's been well in, you know, before I ever got here, and it's worked out very well. They don't abuse it, and I trust the police officers when they call that the roads need to be taken care of, and that's, you know, at any time of night during the day, even during when we're all in, they make the call and we dispatch the crews. And right now we have enough equipment. The new truck that was purchased from November, because of COVID, we actually still have not got that. We did get we did receive the pickup truck, but we have not received the salt truck, you know, with the salter on the back of it, the and that's not an F, it's a Chevy 5500. And that has a 3-yard salt box on the back of it with a plow. And that just hasn't, we probably won't get that until next, you know, in time for next, well, we'll get it during the spring or within the next couple of weeks. You know, there's always been discussion on, you know, so let me finish with the price. So the total deficit for the salaries is $48,080.44, which a total deficit of $147,332.81. We haven't seen that in quite a while. I don't think, I gotta look back. I think last year, like I said, we returned the $11,000. The year before that, I think we were right around the $200,000. I mean, I can check that out and get back to you. But I mean, we still got, you know, February, you know, a week of February and March. So we don't know what's, you know, what's still ahead. If we end up with this, you know, it's in that when we did a study, a 10-year, no matter how you take the blocks of 10 years of expenses, it always comes to this $150,000 of deficit. Even with the, you know, last year being off with, you know, return, and it will still be that 150. If I think you understand what I'm saying. It's all, you know, if you do an average of 10 years, if you take the previous 10 years, you'll find that we're about 150,000 in deficit every single year. It's not going to get any better. We are going to have to start maintaining and salting, plowing the Hickory Hill subdivision. And that's going to cost, I mean, with the staff we have on the clock right now, we will not be able to maintain that. We'll have to go out and hire contractors to take care of that. And getting contractors this year, we're down to 6 contractors. We have the year before and in the year before that, we were upwards of almost 18 different vehicles from contractors. This year, we're down to 5 to 6 contractors. they just don't want to do it because they insure their vehicles, and although we pay and we pay quicker than probably anybody around, it's just not cost worthy for what the town requires them to have for insurance. We have the vehicles, but we just don't have the staff to maintain those vehicles, to put them out and take care of the size of the town that Millis is. So in my budget presentation, you'll see that I will be asking for another DPW worker. That was recommended through the study that was actually the study that was done, that the select board put forward, is that the DPW's general fund is down, understaffed by 4 people. But I'll do that I'll explain more about that during my budget presentation. So with that said, I guess that's report. I can answer any questions about this first, and then if we could make a motion, because then we have to go to the select board on the 8th.
Okay, is there, thanks, Jim. Any questions from anybody?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
One stupid one, but Jim, how much is actually a ton of salt? Is that like a yard, or is it like what's the volume of that?
So each truck, each 18-wheeler truckload is usually 3.5 to 4 tons. So that's
Okay.
And that's an 18-wheeler.
Yeah. As far as the 219, what does that encompass again? I think you touched on it a little bit, but
I'm sorry, what 219?
the 219,000.
Oh, the 219 expenses. So that was already paid at the top of the slip. That's what was paid as of for expenses through January 25th. Everything below, they have not been paid because the budget over is exceeded. So we can't pay it until these funds, until the FinCom and the select board approve that we can over exceed the budget and spend in deficit.
So that's both salary and
No.
other.
No, the 290, everything above is all expenses. That's the rock salt, that's the trucks, that's the contractors, that's the repair of vehicles. Every year we try to paint the body of a vehicle just to keep them, because so the vehicle lasts longer. We did 2 vehicles last year. So that 219, when you add everything up, it comes down to that total expenses of 269,979.37.
Okay. And then the next one down in the salaries, the 69,000. So that's that's the actual salaries through February 13th.
Correct.
But it includes town building employees. So
yeah,
that's the town employees plowing as well. Is that right?
so that's the maintenance person at the town hall, and he and then we had, because there's only one person, we hired, the select board allowed to hire 3 different people to assist him. Then there's not 4 of them in at all times. There's only 2 that come in. He sends them home, and he has to commit. So it's usually Paul and an assistant, and they maintain the police station, the library, and the town hall. And since this is the first year we've been doing that, and I have to tell you, it's remarkable the job that these 2 people do to maintain, and it's 100% better product that I've ever seen in this town of the town hall and the library and the police station being accessible at any type of storm.
Okay, and then the names below, those are all the other drivers.
Yes,
contractors you mentioned.
Yeah, all those are our DPW employees. They have not. This will be in their next payroll, and that was just from that one this last past heavy snow.
Okay.
The exception of Kenneth McCall, he's
Oh yeah, that's right.
contract.
Yeah, Alex was a past employee that we used to have 2 past employees that came back and plowed for us, but Alex has been with us since the day he retired. He's back every winter, and again, it's for what we pay him. it's half of what we would pay. He uses a DPW vehicle, which the vehicle's there, so it's a great idea. I wish we could get, more of them to come back and do it. When I retire, they can hire me back, which will be soon enough then.
So it looks like you were out there shoveling too with the 8.
No, that's, so there's as part of my contract or whatever, the previous town administrator, there's so many snowstorms that before I can get which is, it's stated as a snow stipend. I don't get paid overtime. I don't get comp time. I don't get anything for that time. And he built that into the personnel plan, that there's 8 storms and 12 storms. So when you hit the 8 storms, you get this amount. And then when you hit the 12th storm, you get not that much, but I think it's $1,100-$1,200.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? I do have a quick question, but anybody else?
I almost said Madam Chair there for a second, but I said a quick question.
I respond
for
to
you.
just about anything.
Anything?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Jim, do you know how our pay for contractors compares to like surrounding towns and
Yes.
like Midfield and the other towns around us?
I do. We actually pay, last year was the first year we paid what the town of Franklin did. And when we first came out with that, we actually did get, for last year and this year, we got 2 contractors that left Medway and came here. So we're pretty well up there. Franklin pay, it's well above what the state rates are. And that's usually what we would pay, we paid in the past for state rates. I can forward the board, the rates. Deirdre has them and we can forward it to the board. And when you see, we have a loader that we call in that does, no matter what, we call him in, he does the municipal parking lot, he does the police station, he does the, and that massive parking lot at the schools, because we can't just handle that on ourselves. And I think he makes, isn't it like 150 something an hour?
I'm looking it up right now. Hold on a sec.
And the cheapest is even a 6-wheel large dump truck, it's in the $100 something an hour. But luckily we've only used them 3 times this year. It's been more in-house. Luckily that we didn't have big enough storms.
Excellent, thank you. And I've seen some towns posting like one-time bonuses and things like that. How would that work, or is that ever an option for us to incentivize people as well?
It certainly would. If I was allowed to do that, that would be a great resource.
So the loader for the parking lots is $150 per hour.
Thank you, Deirdre.
You're welcome.
Okay. Mike, is this what we're talking about, we're contemplating is a motion in just kind of a blank check, or is it a specific amount?
That's at the option of the Finance Committee. This is basically a motion to authorize to deficit spend in that account, and you could set a cap on it, or you could just authorize it.
Okay.
Without a cap.
So I'd be interested in hearing some thoughts on that. I'll just tell you that I'm not in favor of a blank check. Not that I just, why do that if we don't have to? I think we ought to probably set and ask Mr. McKay for his recommendation, whether it's, another $100,000 not to exceed, come back to us if you need more, or some number. So Jim, if you wouldn't mind answering that question, and then I'd be interested in hearing thoughts and then moving on to a motion.
Sure, it's a great question, and I usually, and like I said, last year we haven't done this, I would usually ask for exactly that you just stated, that I would ask for this 147,000 and not to exceed. So I would ask for not to exceed $250,000 if that's acceptable. And I would have to come back if we ever have to go over that. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Gary.
Craig, others?
Yeah, I think in the past we have just voted to allow excess spending because we have no control over it either way. Appropriately so. If there's a public safety hazard with the roads and DPW has to plow them, they can exceed whatever cap we put on because it's a public safety issue. So in other years, we have just said that we approve excess funding. Because as Jim said, if he set it at 250 and he has to do more plowing, he'll just come back and tell us he exceeded it. So while it might, it's more the perception that we're setting a parameter on it. It's not really anything binding if we set a not to exceed price, because he can exceed it as I think it's appropriate that he can.
Okay, anybody else? Joyce, Kathy, Jody? And if you have nothing, that's fine. Nothing, if nothing heard, I'll take a motion.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. Thanks.
Okay. Doug, you awake?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, just checking. You'll have to get used to a little humor every now and then. We need some levity.
I was just
I
playing
just-
around with
I'm
numbers.
I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just really flabbergasted by the amount of that they're paid an hour, $150 an hour to plow. I'm flabbergasted. Where does that number come from, and why is it so high?
So most of the rates come from the state sets the plowing rates. And there's only so many vehicles out there that everybody's vying for. You know, there's only so many contractors. There's not as many people do it as in years past, because of the town of Millis requires them to have a $1 million plus $3 million, insurance policies. And they're, last year they went out once. All our contractors went out once last year. So they didn't even make enough money to pay for what they have for the coverage that we require them to have. If we stayed with the state rates, we wouldn't have anybody, because there are other towns, bigger towns are paying much more than even what we're paying here.
And why
Okay,
can't our
please.
own department take care of the plowing? And what would it cost per hour for our own department to take care of it?
So for us to do it, we would probably have to hire, we have 11 staff members. Hopefully we're going to fill a position soon that'll bring us back up to full force of 12. But we'd have to hire maybe 4 to 5 more people full time and that would cost us more through the salary, because you just wouldn't be able to keep them just for the winter. You would,
So our
Mr. McKay.
Yes.
DPW people are actually doing the plowing, all of our DPW?
Every one of them, all water, sewer, stormwater, general people, everyone. And they hear, like I said, the last storm, they came in on Thursday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they left Saturday morning at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Mr. McKay, could you clarify and answer this question? And I think this will help if my assumption is correct, that the $150 an hour is the operating cost of the vehicle. It's not just the driver's wages. It's the operating cost of the vehicle, the fuel, the insurance, the driver's wages.
There you go.
It's all of that bundled in. And
Yes.
that's a huge portion of why it's so expensive.
Plus the cost of the vehicle and the insurance, as I pointed out. Yeah.
Yep.
It's them to get here. That's them to get here and with their vehicle in workable order. And we do require that the machine is in good working order. If it breaks down, we'll get rid of them. Because.
What
Was
was the
that
rationale?
each vehicle, or was that the loader for the
Loader.
That was the loader for the parking lot.
The loader for the parking lot. So it depends on the size of the vehicle. Some of the 3/4 tons, it's $85 an hour. Larger 1 tons is $95. A 10-wheeler is $125. It varies depending on the piece of equipment.
And it's
Thanks, Dee.
contracted out than to buy all that equipment and have it sit until the winter comes, I would imagine. And not to mention the staff.
Jim, what's the reason why we have a $3 million insurance requirement in Millis?
That rate set and I might be off, Deirdre can correct me if
It's
I'm,
actually, the auto insurance required is 500,000 bodily injury and $100,000 property damage, as well as any workers' compensation as required by the state of Massachusetts. And they also have to, the certificate has to name the town of Millis as an additional insured for snow plowing operations. I mean, I can send this to everyone.
No, it's sad. It's just sad. It's something that might cost a lot less because of all the do's and don'ts and regulations of the state. We end up having to pay a lot more than, say, the average Joe would charge. Sad.
yep,
The only
those rates are set by Meyer Insurance, the town's insurance.
Yeah, just to jump on that, yeah, our insurance company, Maya, that's the amount that they indicate, and that's the town's insurance umbrella as well, is 3 million.
Okay,
Unfortunately, we're coming into a society where it's quite
Litigious.
litigious. And there's a lot of lawsuits against towns for property damage,
I know,
liability.
it's
other
just so
issues,
sad. It's just sad. I'm sorry. I just find it really sad.
all right. If I had a gavel, I'd be banging it. Let's,
Mhm.
it's only February. We can't lament that much longer because we still have probably 2 months of snow and ice. So can I get a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead,
Kathy, I'd like to make a motion that the Finance Committee authorize the DPW to deficit spend not in excess of $250,000. Or pay, I don't understand, Mr. Chair, or do we allow, say, to pay the 147,332 and then another 100,000+ for deficit?
I don't think that we need to include that, but I would ask that you amend to include for snow and ice removal.
For snow, for snow and ice removal. Thank you. Okay.
Second that.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that the Finance Committee vote to authorize deficit spending for snow and ice removal not to exceed $250,000 for this current budget year. Any further discussion? And so I'll go around the horn. Deidre, are you ready?
Yes.
We'll vote. Joyce.
Yep.
Kathy?
Yes.
Pardon me. Doug?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Jim? I heard him say aye, but
Yay.
I saw him say aye. There we go. Katie?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Jody?
Aye.
And I think I got everybody, and I vote aye. Okay,
Thank you all, and
so
I love answering questions. So when I come back, please read up on, go to Millis, www.millis.org, and read up on PFAS. We all should be talking about it. So let's read up on it, and let's have a lot of questions when I come back, because it's going to affect every single one of us as water ratepayers here. See you then.
Jim, before you sign off, at least I'm going to give you some prep, because I actually did have a question on PFAS tonight. And so hopefully you can definitely give you the advanced copy of the test or the question. And that is, why are we not handling the PFAS issue as with more urgency, in the sense that why wouldn't we be seeking some sort of reserve funding now, in the sense that if we lose another well, as I've heard you say, that is probably unacceptable in my mind, probably in some others. Why wouldn't we be dealing with it on a reserve funding basis out of the enterprise fund versus waiting for Springtown meeting, Fall Town meeting?
So the quick answer to that is we're waiting to see if we get the grant, which that is going to be a yes or no answer very quickly, within days. That's what I was told when I think the last time I spoke on this issue. I think it's something that I think that it's a good question. I'm the director of public works. I think the town administrator should be more apt to answer that question, because I've asked that same question of the select board and him. It may get to that. I mean, every week, Kathy knows, Kathy's the chair of and Craig's on that committee also, on the enterprise fund committee. We are there. I mean, we're there now. I mean, we get reports. We're testing 2 different wells monthly, and the number fluctuates. The last one at well number 5 was 16.16. And once it hits that 20 parts per trillion, that well's coming offline. And what are we going to do after that is we would look at temporary treatment, and that would have to be an emergency fund, if allowed, transfer from the enterprise fund to quickly get that in here, but that's 3 months off. So we would be, it's an extremely touchy situation. And, myself and the town administrator, we talk about this every single day. It's because it's not good.
Mr. Chairman,
well,
if
I
I could interject just for a second.
Yeah, and just hopefully everybody can bear with me. I know this is not on sequence right now, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to ask Jim about it tonight, while he's here. So go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Just briefly, Jim's absolutely correct. We talk about this pretty much on a daily basis. We've been told we have a high probability of receiving this grant, and hopefully that comes to pass shortly. If not, and we continue to get bad news that's going to require some more immediate action, we would certainly seek either through the finance committee and the selectmen and or ultimately through the Department of Revenue for emergency spending authorization if we have to protect the ability to keep our water supply operating.
Okay. While we're on the PFAS topic, anybody else have any questions aside from what is it?
Joyce, go read it. I'm going to quiz you on it next week. She didn't hear me.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McKay.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody. Thanks for the questions.
All right. We'll proceed on to possible reserve fund transfer requests. The floor is yours, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, I have, in consultation with the finance director, looked at, any short-term needs in regards to possible transfer fund requests. The only department I'd probably mention this evening is the recreation department. They are on the razor's edge right now as far as their operational funding. They are in the midst of beginning some programs that will be bringing in some revenue. And we will keep track of that. And if it looks like they're going to need something to bridge a gap, we will bring that back before the finance committee. But they should have enough to carry through at least through your next couple of meetings, and we'll know within a few weeks whether we'll need a reserve fund transfer just to keep that department going until the spring programs start bringing in some revenue.
Okay, Mike, one quick question. Is it main amount, or is it also because costs are up, or both?
Are you talking about for the recreation department?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's because of the COVID, and a lot of their winter programs had to be canceled. They just weren't bringing in the revenue they originally anticipated. And we also had another problem we had water damage in the gym in the Veterans Memorial Building. Fortunately, that's fully covered by our insurance, but it did take about 4 months for that gym replacement to take place because of all the delays with lumber and getting the materials for the gym floor. So that gym floor is just opening up again now, and they're going to be starting programs soon. So really it's a loss of a couple of seasons of program revenue.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Mike on possible reserve fund transfer requests?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
None heard.
Chairman-
Mike, please proceed on to the warrant discussion. Go ahead.
Thank you. And actually, before we get to that, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, just to touch back on the select board's operating budget priorities. I would probably recommend, if possible, if this item could be put on your next agenda. And I will get that memo out to the whole finance committee in advance so that you'll have time to review that before your next meeting, and we can discuss that at length at that point.
I'm certainly fine with that unless there's any strenuous objections from the rest of the committee. None heard. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Great, thank you. So I don't know if you have the most up-to-date town meeting article list. I think, Deirdre, were you able to send that out? I know that Karen forwarded that earlier today.
I did. I can share the screen.
Okay, great. So not to belabor our standard articles, just touch upon those briefly. Article 1, the unpaid bills. Again, those are prior year bills. We don't have a lot of those at this point, but there probably will be a few. We do, and then we have our year-end basically transfers for fiscal year 21, budgetary transfers. Then we have our main fiscal year 22 operating budget. And then the articles 4, 5, and 6 are our enterprise funds. Article 7 is our standard consent agenda. Articles 8 and 9 are community preservation articles for some projects that they are working on. The Walling map rehab and the MHS dugout project. Then Article 10 is our annual audit. Articles 11 and 12 are through our assessing office for the FY22 personal property interim year inspections and our FY23 recertification process. Article 13, our capital items. The capital committee is working diligently on that, and you'll see, I know that the capital committee will be coming before the finance committee to discuss that at a future meeting. Then we have some of the school articles, the bus lease, computer lease, the previously approved computer lease and the new computer lease. Article 17, the 61A purchase, that is the Braun property off of Village Street. The select board is holding a public hearing next Monday in regards to this for the possible purchase of this property. The sale price of this property is $1 million. So at that hearing, there'll be some discussion about the different possible uses of the property, the cost, the funding mechanisms, and so forth. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more discussion on that at some of your future meetings. Article 18 is the street acceptance of Hickory Hill subdivision. Articles 19, 20, 21, and 22 are all zoning bylaw amendments that are really going to be put forward by the planning board. We have or being considered. Again, I want to stress that this is just a draft, this whole list, and is very much subject to change, even though the warrant is closed. That some of these articles may be removed and there could be others added, but this is kind of a catch-all for what we have now. So we have the 4 zoning bylaw amendments, the performance-based solar ordinance. Then we have 2 zoning bylaws regarding parking dimensions and compact car parking. And then 1 dealing with cannabis delivery, which is a new phase of the cannabis evolving market that the state just issued recently. Article 23 is looking at adding a bylaw to waive town building project permit fees. This is something that's generally done by the select board per project, but this would pretty much just put it into the bylaws that town projects will have their building project permit fees waived, so the town's not actually paying itself through the project. Article 24, again, this is an item that the enterprise committee is looking carefully at, and we'll be talking with the select board about the issues with our capacity at the Charles River Pollution Control Facility, and looking at ways to address those issues. Articles 25 and 26 have to do with PFAS, which was discussed a little earlier. The first one is to deal with a response plan, and the next one is for the actual PFAS treatment design, which again, we certainly are seeking a grant for, but we're not sure at this point if we'll receive it. Article 27 is a stormwater issue for the design construction of drainage rehab at Village Street and Birch Street. So that would be through the stormwater accounts. We had a request that just came in recently, just last week, for a request from a citizen for the town to look at possibly the sale of a piece of town land off of Acorn Street. I think the piece of land is under an acre. There'll be more information coming on that if that ends up remaining on the warrant. And then the last four are pretty standard articles. We've got the Medicare, Medicaid reimbursement services, unemployment insurance fund, OPEB fund, and stabilization fund. So that's the real quick overview of the draft warrant at this point for the Springtown meeting. Be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Any questions out there?
Hey, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Greg.
I believe, and I think I think we're presenting in a week or two to the select board from the Charter Review Committee, so there could be something coming on from that if the select board decides to put that on. But it'd be another item. We concluded our meetings, we wrapped it all up. We had our final vote last night, and Pete, no pressure. It was a 20-minute meeting tops, and we finished our final recommendations, got it done, and they scheduled us for the select board to present. So, so there might be something coming on at that if they deem it worthy to put on the warrant.
That's unfair, Craig. There's a much broader perspective in this meeting, in this committee than
There were
that
four. Five of us.
All right.
Yes, and as I said before, this document is subject to change. The one thing I would like to add, if I may, is that obviously we are still in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. So there still is a fairly high probability that we may need to look to adjust that May 3rd date slightly to make it a Saturday outdoor meeting. So nothing's been decided on that, but I just want to make sure everyone knows that that's a distinct possibility. So if you're looking on booking out-of-town trips on the weekend before or weekend after that, I would ask that you try to the extent possible to keep those weekends open. So
Based on the November town meeting, I'll expect it to be snowing and freezing at this one because it's like 70th of November.
yes. Well, we're hoping for at least in the 60s for a nice May outdoor town meeting.
Beautiful.
Mike, along those lines, given that the town elections have just moved to what, a week after?
That's correct.
So how would you deal with that?
Well, the election, I believe, yes, would be believe it's the 10th or 11th. So we would look, I think we would, obviously the ultimate setting of the date would be up to the select board, but I believe that if we look to have an outdoor town meeting, it would either be Saturday the 1st with maybe a rain date of Saturday the 8th or Sunday the 2nd, depending on how that goes. So it'd be close to that. It would still be before the election. Not ideal to have a town meeting a couple days before the election, just because of the workload and the issues involved, but we will try to work around those issues the best we can. And we're hopeful that this is the last town meeting we're going to have to do with special circumstances because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, I just want to make sure you're not boxed in, and sounds like you're not. Okay, any more questions on the warrant or discussion? Okay, none heard. Mike, thank you very much. And
thank you.
I'm not sure, I don't think we need you for any, of course we need you, but don't necessarily, it's not critical that you stay for the remainder. So thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you very
Welcome.
much.
Nice to see you, Mike.
Great, have a good night, everybody.
Night, Mike.
I am going to defer to the Chair Emeritus, Jody Garzon, for the Finance Committee Policies and Procedures Handbook discussion. Actually, I believe this was discussed at the last tri-board, which I attended most, but not all. So Jody, would you care to help me out here?
Sure. So, one of the things that we've been trying to do townwide is to actually have written policies and procedures. In reviewing what's actually in writing for the Finance Committee, I asked Deirdre to provide the links to the bylaws and the town charter. We don't have to look at it in detail right here, but you have the links there. You will see there's not a whole lot in writing as to what it is that the Finance Committee does, how it's organized, our policies or anything. It's mostly we have to have a Finance Committee. It makes recommendations for town meeting. There isn't even anything as to having a chair, vice chair, clerk, or anything like that in writing. So one of the things that I have started working on in the past few weeks is actually writing up a policy document that we can discuss. Mr. Chair, I don't know if it would make sense to have kind of a subcommittee work on it for presentation to the committee. That would probably be the most efficient way to work on something like this. There's kind of two different strategies that we could approach this. One is what I would see, maybe a 5-page document that is similar to what the select board has prepared for their policies and procedures of this is how our meetings are organized, this is how we as a committee are organized, this is how we handle town meetings, and that type of thing. What I have been working on is a little bit more comprehensive because when I came into the chairship, there wasn't a lot in writing, but there's a lot of unwritten rules and expectations as to how meetings are run. And I think that might be helpful going forward, particularly if we want, broad participation within the town, particularly from folks who maybe haven't been living here for 20 years or are not accustomed to participating in town committees and town government, because it's kind of a whole beast, unusual in its workings, unlike kind of other committees. So I've been working on something a little bit more comprehensive, which might be a more informal document to kind of pass to new members, kind of a new member orientation and officers orientation type document. So that's kind of to set that up. I had Deirdre forward to the committee some questions that Kathy had. These are kind of things that really should be addressed somewhere, of how our, how is the agenda set? There is in writing some guidance as to who are the liaisons to certain committees, and on which committees are FinCom members voting members. How do we handle warrant articles? How are budget meetings held? As a town, we've been working on this in many different aspects, and in talking to Chairman McCaffrey, he's prodding us to have something in writing that will also help with our, financing books, to show that, we're not the Three Stooges running the finance committee. We actually have policies and procedures. So that's kind of where I was thinking on this, and thought, that's something that we should discuss as a committee.
So I'll just kind of lead us off, and I hope that others will discuss as well, as a kind of a free discussion. I think it's a great idea, and the only reason that it could possibly be a bad thing is if it were 10 to 20 pages, succinct and concise, to the point, but addressing all of the issues that you brought up, including a lot of the discussion that we had on how budgets are formulated and proposed and models are adopted. I mean, that was a big part of the discussion last week at the tri-board. I'd like to see that in there too, in terms of how we expect that, even though we don't necessarily drive the process, we're certainly a big part of it. And ultimately, when it comes down to making the recommendation at town meeting, we can recommend anything we want. They can give us, as they, when I say they, I mean the school committee and the select board, they can propose in any format and any model that they want. It's always best that if we can coordinate and use our time at the tri-board and other forums to come up with something collaborative, it serves everybody's interest. And I don't see any resistance to doing that. So I definitely would like to hear some other comments from members of the committee.
Question. I've been on the board for 3 years. I've not been handed any kind of information as to how we do things or not do things, and I haven't known how to ask questions or who to ask questions. Has there been anything in writing? No. So this is something I think it's great, because I've just sat and wondered, okay, what do we do? What don't we do? What are our rules and regulations? So I think it's great. I know that Craig's been on it for a long time, and there've been people on the committee for a long time, so they know policies. But as I say, 3 years, and I've gone, so who do I go to ask about this, and who do I ask about that? So kudos. I think it's a wonderful idea.
I would ask Katie and Doug and Sean, if they agree with that, and do they have any other, because one of the things that I would add is that I think we should have a committee. I don't think it should be, Craig, Jody, Doug, and I, or, being the people. I think we need some fresh views at it as well. And there needs to be some people that know how it's worked, but there needs to be some fresh eyeballs on it. So I would ask that you guys, please give your opinion.
Yeah, and I think spelling some of it out would be very helpful too, because we've always had, and I saw it in Kathy's list as well, mentioned it, the dissenting opinion. I think it was, I can't recall, but it was always like 2 or 3. If there were 2 or 3 people that had a dissenting view, minority view, they gave a minority report, and that was just tradition. But it was never spelled out and codified. If it was one person, they spoke as an individual to the audience, and they had the right to do that. But if they were I think it was 3 was the standard we used. 3 dissenting voices could make an official minority report. But I think spelling something like that out, and I'm not even saying it has to be 3, would be a nice thing to have in any handbook. So it really, everybody knows what they're getting into and what's happening with it.
Agreed.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead, Sean. I'm recognizing Sean, and then I'm gonna.
Excellent, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm one of those that fall in the category. We've only been here for 2.5 years. living in the town as well. So that would be huge to have something like that coming into it. Because I think one of the struggles for me is if you're starting mid-cycle as well, you're not really seeing the full picture until you've gone through May and the fall town meeting. So I think having something, if you're starting mid-cycle or just coming in brand new, would be huge. And I'd be really interested in being part of that subcommittee.
Great. Thanks, Sean. Katie?
Yeah, I was just going to agree. I think it's a great idea. I don't have a whole lot more to add to it than that. I obviously came in very green to the committee, still kind of feel that way, like I'm still kind of getting my bearings. So I think anything that we can document or put some sort of resource together would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you. Doug or anybody else have some thoughts on it? So I'll be quiet. I'll let that pause happen.
I think one.
Or Jim?
Yeah, I think one.
Go ahead, Doug.
One thing that we might do as we go through this particular cycle here is recognize and write down things that pop up that fit that, that would fit into that sort of policies and procedures manual, right? Because we have discussions all the time that pop up, and like Joyce said, she doesn't exactly know, and that would provide an opportunity to formalize process, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the board for almost 3 years, and there's been no manual. And because of the not being able to talk to other board members because of open law, I forget what the terminology is, but
Open meeting laws.
thank you. Not knowing who I could ask, who I couldn't ask, not know if I could go to Mike Kaczynski and ask him questions, didn't know if I could ask so-and-so and so-and-so. So I've kind of like just been coming along and coming to the meetings going, well, eventually I hope I'll know what to do other than give my opinion.
Well, it's a good thing you're not shy.
It might be helpful to spell out a little bit on the open meeting rules too, because that's the confusion. You can't talk about things that are under discussion with the majority of the committee. But if you have a question of, can I give a minority report if I disagree? That's not under discussion. That's not a pending issue. And it should be spelled out. I don't disagree with you. But I think that you just have to, open meeting law is restrictive, but it's not prohibitive. You just have to be careful about the topics and the number. You can't have 5 of us over for tea.
Can't have quorum.
Yeah. Right. And I understand that, but I just think that it would have been really nice to have come into here knowing the rules and regulations rather than trying to figure it out and then go, oh, shoot, I just screwed up. Or I didn't screw up.
That's why I think an open meeting section, would be critically important for it. So people understand that. So you're not
right
confused by that.
And I'd be happy to be on that committee to try to figure things out so that we knew what we can and cannot discuss.
Okay. So I want to give Jim a minute if he wants to contribute or say anything, or before I kind of move us off of this.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody's said so far. I mean, there is a lot of I think history that you don't have when you first walk in, like the 65-35 rule. I didn't know what that was all about, and there was a bunch of other things. I think that you just have to be on the committee for a while to really understand kind of those budgets or those things that it would be really helpful.
So it sounds like we're almost close to, I don't know, I'm not taking a vote on it, but we all support this. I think it's prudent to have a committee. The magic number is probably 3, but could be more. I'm not going to limit it. So I think what I'll do is I'll ask that if anybody wants to volunteer to be on the committee, you send me an email just to me. You don't have to put it to everybody. I ask that you not put it to everybody, because that falls in line with the open meeting laws. Just send me an email, or you can chat up on this Zoom and, send me a note that says I'm interested, and then I'll take that under consideration and propose for our next meeting, who it should be. I mean, I think it sounds like Jody should be on it, and is willing to be on it, but I will ask that Jody be on the committee. Kathy brings up excellent points that she's written down. And so there's more than enough people that have said that they'd be willing to be on it, including Sean and Katie, and Jim. So we'll spell out a committee. And again, I'm not looking to limit participation at all. So
I think if that committee brings in the ideas and suggestions and we discuss them at this meeting, and if you keep the committee to 3 to generate ideas, you don't have to post a meeting or anything else. Not that we're trying to avoid that, but that would be below the open meeting trigger and you wouldn't have to schedule a Zoom meeting or anything else officially. You could work however else you think you can work.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I wonder if I might be allowed to have a discussion regarding the way the Finance Committee handles the budget and the articles, either before or after. I brought it up in number 4, I think, is probably one of the more important items. And from experience, it was, can the FinCom hold budget hearings prior to the select board on certain matters? And one of them I was thinking about was 61A in particular, but because I bring that up because at the tri-board, you may remember that Chairman McCaffrey wants comments. And, I don't want to keep saying, well, I was on the Board of Selectmen, but I didn't, with all due respect, because I was a selectman when all the newbies came on the FinCom, it was almost like a rubber stamp that and you can start, but from my perspective, it went from the selectmen to the Finance Committee, and very rarely was there any, it was brought up, there was concerns by the FinCom, but at the end of the day, there was no going back to the selectmen and saying something. And I say this, that I wish the FinCom would, because as a select man, and I was a select man, but was a select person, it's so difficult to say no to various departments when they're frontline workers, when they could sell ice to a Eskimo. And it's difficult when you're sitting weekly and sometimes daily on off select board meetings, and to say no to them. And that's what I was hoping a lot of times I would hear from the selectmen, that at the end of the day, money is flowing into this town. Like, to talk to the people, Craig, did you ever think when you were on this board 40 years ago that this kind of money would be coming in?
No,
just to know where yes is enough. What I'm saying. And all of a sudden, the unfortunate thing is the marijuana money can only go to, things associated to marijuana, but the Glen Ellen money, the sewer that's opening up a lot of town now, do we have to spend it 5 minutes after we get it? Or can we, which is what I'm feeling. It's like staff. And I don't think the public wants that. And I got on the Finance Committee because I wanted to be a different type of voice that would, are we allowed to go back to the selectmen and say, that's what I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, is that, that's a real important issue for, which I know why everybody, why you're on the board is to participate in a lot of the financial. And I don't know, it's, I talk this much and, I lost. So, I'm going to still continue the fight for the people about, spending this money, because I always go back to, 1984 when I moved here, and it was, let's all get a shovel and go up and shovel the town hall out. Niagara Hall was where the town hall, not Niagara, the little building everyone wants to spend 1.5 million on. That was the town hall. That's how much it's expanded. But it's not going to be forever. And all of you know that. So if anything comes from this policies and procedures, I hope it's something like that. Thanks,
Okay.
Pete.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was one of the people that had voiced
Sounds like you, Craig.
rubber stamp that started to occur. And it really happened when Mr. Aspinwall left and before Mike got here. We went from having a lot of good information handed to the FinCom where we discuss, think about, and work on. We had warrant articles and that we would dismiss. And we had dozens, if you remember those old meetings, we had dozens of warrant articles that we dismissed for lack of funding, but they were presented to the Finance Committee because it gave options. It gave options to the voters, it gave options to the town. And I remember when the town meeting after Mike Gazinski, after Charlie left with the interim, Kennedy, I believe was her name, we ended up with just a list of exactly the amount of money we had to spend, and then we found alternative funding. So we couldn't even spend all the money we had because there were no options given to the Finance Committee. So I think, or forget the Finance Committee, given to the voters. At town meeting, we went in with about a budget that used every dime that was available, with no options if we had extra money or didn't. So while I do believe that within reason, the select board and the school set their budget priorities, and I'm going to use within reason, because I spoke against the police, if you recall, the extra police officers, because I thought that was out of sight of the budget growth that we could sustain. And I voiced concerns about the paramedics in the fire department, but now the grant looks like it is going to pay for itself. But I was just concerned with the budget stuff. But outside of the reasonable growth of the budgets, I think that it's incumbent on the Finance Committee to have the information and take the stand on those things, especially warrant articles. Because without having a broad choice of a menu for warrant articles, you are just a rubber stamp for the selectmen.
Exactly. And that's how for 3 years I looked at it, Mr. Chairman. Sorry to interrupt, but.
No, if they come in with $500,000 of free cash and $500,000 of warrant articles, you got no choice except to rubber stamp. It used to be there'd be $500,000 of free cash and 1.4 million of warrant articles. And we'd dismiss. But sometimes our priorities differed with the select board priorities. So we might recommend one that they didn't. And that was not uncommon, but it wasn't the norm. I mean, we'd agree on 80% of them and disagree on 20%. And those days are gone, because we get just exactly enough money to cover exactly what's proposed.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Doug.
That is on the select board, is it not?
Totally is.
Because we can only discuss, argue about, throw back at them, propose alternatives based on what they give us. So if all they give us is 10 articles that spend $1 million and we have $1 million to spend, as Craig said, there isn't a whole lot for us to do. When, even if we think that there's 2 other articles that we would consider to be more important, the only thing we can do is to go back to them and say, hey, what about these 2 things? We think these are higher priority than what you have on here. And then they can do whatever they want.
And we can not fund and put the money in free cash, but
That's true too.
Yeah. So it really, and forget about us. I mean, we're just 9. We are 9 now, aren't we? We're 9 people that are on the FinCom. It's town meeting. We're not giving town meeting any choices. So town meeting becomes a meaningless rubber stamp. And I'm gonna, on the budget side, I personally, as long as it's not excessive or outside of a normal growth rate, whether they prioritize library over council on aging, over rec department, over police, over fire, that is their elected position to make that prioritization. If they're saying they're going to grow by 15%, that's when I have a concern. But if they got reasonable growth, I am not going to be terribly concerned about reasonable, sustainable growth that we can afford. I'm not going to be concerned about the mix that comes out of the selectmen or select board. Now you got me doing it, Kathy. The select board. But if it's unsustainable growth, if it's if it's above a normal acceptable growth rate without clear reasoning behind it, that's when I get concerned, and that's when we do have to step in. But until we have choices on the warrant, it's kind of good, bad, otherwise rubber stamp.
If I
So
might
let me,
final,
if you would, let me jump in. I just want to say a few things that, Kathy, specific to your question on number 4, I think it's going to be difficult for us to vote on anything before the select board sends us, their warrant articles or draft warrant articles. However, we do get these updates from Mike, basically from here on out. He attends the select board meeting and he comes back with the latest developments on the warrant. I think, running down the list of articles that we can read on our own is limited in its productivity. And what we should be doing is asking him to, give us a little bit more information, and we should be prepared to have questions and ask us questions and have him bring them back, or have them put in our minutes and have those be known to the select board, because I think that's our way of influencing and signaling how the finance committee feels about certain things. I don't think we can vote. I don't think we need to vote personally in advance of what the select board sends us, but there's no reason that we can't signal or communicate and document how we feel about an issue. I mean, we just went through 30 something articles and I already have, an opinion on a couple of them. There's no reason that we can't make sure that, I don't know how much time they're spending reading our meeting minutes, but there's no reason that we can't send them to them specifically. I just add that. I mean, I think all these things, and let me pile on a little bit more, in the sense that our document that we're going to put together on our policies and procedures will help, as will I think the tri-board meetings have been, I said I would never say this, but, or count the number of years I'm on the finance committee. But we didn't have tri-board meetings when I first started. And I do think it's an improvement in terms of how the town executes, the different bodies execute the budget, the planning, the strategic goals and objectives. The tri-board meeting is, to me, it's worthwhile.
The tri-board does do a lot, but I mean, even at those meetings, I've requested that, for instance, the capital committee, I requested that we don't just get a list of the 5 items that can be funded because we have $500,000.
exactly.
We get the top 10. It doesn't have to be all 200 items or whatever, but just the reasonable list of items that we know we're not going to recommend all of them. But then we as a committee can weigh what the select board says, what the capital planning committee says, and what we hear. And I think that honestly, the roads need to be on it every time. And we may never have enough to fund it, but if we're in a position ever where we have extra money come in, which has happened in the past, in 3 days before town meeting, if it's not on that list, we can't recommend funding it at town meeting. So having a little bit of latitude would go a really long way to make a more productive town meeting for everybody. And I've requested that at the tri-board meeting, and I've been reminded that the select board sets the priority of what goes on the warrant. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to move to the select board, because I wanted to send more stuff to the finance committee. I tell my finance people at work that I'm deep down inside, I'm an operations person because I ran branches for the YMCAs and stuff. Finance is the key piece, and getting information to the finance committee is critical. And our select board over the last 5 years has become more of a roadblock to getting the good information out than it was 5 years ago. Charlie Espinwall would sit with us every meeting and we'd get the information, good, bad, or otherwise, in a lot of cases before the select board got it, the finance information. So it really was a role reversal that happened when was it Sue Kennedy, Kathy? I want to say
Yeah.
Suzanne Kennedy was the interim town administrator.
Yeah, when she came in, that's when things shifted to where we were getting it after the fact and late, as opposed to, I mean, the finance committee by this point would have had 6 budget hearings, 6 different people by this point of the year, 6 different departments.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Chair, in finalizing,
Go ahead,
I
Ken.
just want to, and we've got 2 finance committee members that are seeking the position of select board, and you're going to be uh, asked by certain groups in town. And we all know what groups they are. You know, will you give us money? Will you prioritize us in the budget? And that's what happens.
Yeah.
With all due respect, that's what happens. And when I saw that happen, I was just looking at the finance committee. Will you come and tell us that we don't need the? And it didn't happen. All of a sudden, the finance, oh yeah, we need more and this and that. You know, so be the cog in the wheel sometimes. You know, you're running for select board. This is, you know, I hope all of a sudden you're not going to be getting support from people, but you have to. You're going to get support from different groups in town, and they all want a piece of the pie. And you know, either you're going to say yes to them, or you're going to, you know, be one term.
Well, and Kathy, on my the last year as chairman of the FinCom, the select board on the night of town meeting was putting together an increase to, I don't know if you're on the select board at that time.
No.
An increase to, I think it was the year before because Jim Neville was on. And it was a year or two before you, but they're putting, they put in an increase for the library and the Council on Aging at the
bingo.
On the night of town meeting. And I went in because first off, agree or disagree with the need for more staff. You don't do it the night of town meeting. You don't do that as a last minute item and put it in there right before you go in to talk to the voters. It needed to be done weeks before that. But it was a situation where, and then you could discuss it. It was a situation where we had extra money at the last minute and the priority was set by the select board, and Jody, I think you were on then, the select board to do it that night. And fortunately, the Council on Aging and the library withdrew their request. So they didn't push it through. But yeah, that had all the potential in the world to be an ugly situation at town meeting. So yeah, I agree with you, Kathy. You got to be careful about what you promise, because we can't, and the model shows that we put together, you can't sustain unlimited personnel and budget growths. You have to put money towards capital to make this last. Because as Kathy said, we're going to run out of money someday. We've got 4 or 5 good years ahead of us with construction, Glen Ellen, and the marijuana money, and then
people my age don't smoke marijuana anymore. I mean, you know.
Oh, Kathy,
come on.
Council on Aging gets their grant.
Right, that's why
Yeah,
we need
there
all the
you go.
education as to the benefits of
Oh, stop! You
smoking
know,
marijuana.
we're taking up Pete's time here.
Oh yeah, I have a big speech prepared to the crescendo here for the first meeting.
You're just so far ahead of agenda right now. I feel
And you want to know something?
No,
This
we're
was
not.
a really good meeting.
Craig, are you handing out vape pens as swag?
No swag. I got 2 kids to pay for college still. There's no swag.
I'm waiting for no carbs candy.
All right. Is there any more general discussion on policies, procedures, or ways that we can not be a rubber stamp?
Yeah, I don't want to be a bobblehead. And that's how I've kind of felt.
All right.
The selectmen to send us the stuff. I mean, there's not much we can do other than.
Well, schedule is a big part of it, and we have to keep them on schedule. So that would be my biggest gripe along the way. Has been, you know, there's not much opportunity to. I've never been shy about dissenting, and I don't think any of us should be. And so if there's opinions to be given, hopefully, as I've demonstrated, I'm going to be trying to pull them out of people so that we can discuss them, and you know, have a worthwhile discussion on the items. But keeping the select board on schedule and keeping the town departments on schedule is critical to being productive as well. So
yeah.
Well,
sometimes it's out of their control, other times it's not.
Mr. Chair, I like your idea about trying to loop Mike in a little bit more and get a little bit more information from him as to what's being discussed by the select board, and sort of, because it seems to me that there's, you know, where, like Craig said, we've been in this position where there might be 12 things to consider, and the select board goes down and whittles that down to 7. And we never hear about the other 5. And so I think if we could be aware of what those other 5 in, maybe they really are some things that should just be dismissed out of hand. But, you know, it's possible that the finance committee might think, you know, one of those is important.
Yep. Yep.
Has
Mr.
there
Chair?
been, do we know if there's going to be a change as far as the amount of select board members? Has it just, are we changing it to 5?
Joyce?
I
Spoiler
don't see
for
that
the-
there's an article about that.
That's the article that's coming out of the Charter Review Committee.
It is.
I don't know if it's going to be put, all the Review Committee can do is recommend to the select board, and the select board has to choose to put that on or not onto the warrant. And there's a unanimous, among other things, the Charter Review Committee did vote unanimously, so Doug and I both were there, and both voted to move to 5 select board members after much discussion. I mean,
And when will that be decided?
well, we're going to present to them on, I want to say the 8th, but I'm not 100% sure. March 8th, I think is when we're presenting that to the select board. And when that's
right.
presented to the select board, they'll discuss it. They'll reopen the warrant if they choose and put it on. There were 3 or 4 other recommendations too, but that was probably the
Yeah.
most impactful.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Jody.
I did want to point the other members of the committee to the fiscal year 22 department budget request that Deirdre has posted to the website. So if you go to millismass.gov and you go to boards and committees to the finance committee, you'll see on the left-hand side, one of the menu items is FY22 department budget requests. So you can look through each of the requests that budget requests that each department is making, and that will flow into the town budget, but there may be other requests in there that unless we look through each department in detail, we wouldn't necessarily know. So that's a resource. Thank you, Deirdre, for putting those on the website. That's super helpful. That at your leisure, you can read through those. I just happened to start going through it today when I was looking through some things. So, and I believe if any finance committee member needs a printed copy, Deirdre can provide that to you if you ask her.
Absolutely. It's you're very welcome. It's very humongous binder. I only, I scanned everything. The DPW budget is not there yet, or the building department.
Or schools. Schools
Or
is separate.
schools.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it does have, a lot of the other departments. So I just encourage everyone to kind of take some time to go through that. We used to get reams of paper, and this is a lot better for the environment, but maybe a little worse for your eyes. I don't know. Depends on on your screen resolution.
Yeah, I think, and this is probably completely out of order at this point, but I did look at those documents, and I just have a question if anybody else wants to look at them. For the host community agreement, marijuana impact funds requests, it looks to me like they're requesting more money than is available for FY22. Now, that might just mean that there's some money left over from FY21, but the number's really close, but it looks like what they're requesting is like $5,000 more than what's been indicated will be available.
Doug,
Yeah.
specifically, which link is that under? That request?
I pulled it off of a February 18th PDF.
Meeting
it's a 7-page PDF from Deirdre.
Okay.
It's from the last tri-board.
It's actually I think it's actually the tri-board.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the prioritization they're gonna have to go through too and decide what's available and what they're recommending, but it's good to see all the requests without their recommendations.
I didn't know if the intention of this was to spend all that money and that, they just added it up and
The
that's where it
host
came to.
community, from what I understand, the host community agreement needs to be spent. The money that comes in through taxation could go towards roads,
Right.
police, fire, DPW, library, schools, whatever. It's just tax. It's just
Right.
regular funds. But this, I think, has to be spent appropriately.
But this is the total on here. They're giving a total that it has to be split two ways, right? This is not just host community. I think it's listed like that, but and again, unless I'm mistaken from what was indicated, there's $175,658 of impact fee and the same amount of retail tax revenue.
I think the numbers match this year, don't they? Aren't they both 3%?
They are, and that's what I'm saying. And if you add the two of them up, you get less than the total of all the funds that they've requested, and they have this listed on here as impact funds request. And it's more
We'll
than the
get
total.
clarification. We definitely ought to get clarification on that.
Yeah, and I believe that the tax money is going into the regular budget because that's part of the formula I put in, that 4% formula. But the impact fees, so it would appear to me, Doug, that they've got twice the impact fee request than they have impact fees.
That's my point, is this total is,
I think you're gonna have to do some
it
serious
looks like it's adding up both pieces, but it's even more than the total of those two pieces.
I think they're gonna have to cut half of that is my guess, but let's get clarification on that because the non-impact fee, the tax, is part of the base budget.
Right.
It's not even included in that.
Right.
They're gonna have to cut half of it.
So I just didn't mean to take up more time. I just wanted to point out that I noticed.
Well, it's
Mr. Chair, I think
Go ahead, Kathy.
it was explained at either the selectmen meeting or the tri-board. A lot of that money isn't going to be available until fall town meeting because it has to be approved in the state somehow as documented that they have it. And I think a lot of the marijuana impact requests were going to be put off until the fall. But we could get, I could be wrong.
Well, I'm sure we will seek clarification the next time we have an opportunity. It's unfortunately not right now. So take a note, Doug, please. They're all good points. It's just we got to get the
suggestion too on the same topic, not marijuana topic, the speed things up topic, not speed things up, bring get more choices. It used to be that a select board member would attend almost all of our meetings. I remember Mr. Vecchi sat in the audience for years. And that was always helpful because that was a direct link to the select board. That seems to have stopped about 4 or 5 years ago as well. And so requesting, and there used to be one that attended the school meetings too at one point, so that they just had that nexus between the three boards before the tri-board meeting. So if we could request a member attend one of our meetings, I think it would be helpful. We can't mandate that they do, but I think it's a reasonable request to ask them to.
I concur.
It's all theirs. So
I will do my best to make sure they know when the meetings are, whether that's more than just the post and what we send out when the meeting is posted, but specifically ask them to do that. And I would say it's actually, it takes just as much time, but it's actually easier now than it used to be. They don't have to attend in person. But they can put it on the phone or whatever device they're viewing on.
Yeah, especially around this time of year with budgets.
Okay, I'll take one last round of inputs on this discussion, and then we'll move on. Okay, none heard. Any old business, new business? Do we have? We don't have any reserve fund requests or anything like that. Besides the there's nothing, no transfers or out of cycle stuff that we have to approve. Deirdre, is there?
No,
Bills or
not
anything?
at this time, no.
Okay. Okay, meeting minutes. Let's move on to those then. I'll take motions provided that I can find the meeting minutes.
I
Mr. Chair,
motion to accept the meetings from the last visit. Last meeting.
Hold on one second on that, Joyce. Jody, were you going to make a motion or were
I
you going to bring up
was.
something? Okay,
Yeah.
well, we'll take Joyce's motion to go ahead. Joyce, say it.
No, to accept the minutes of the meetings of last visit.
Got to do them one at a time because I know the attendance was different.
Right.
And let somebody else do it.
We'll put that in the
Spelled it out
procedures and
3
policies,
times.
Joyce.
What?
Jody, you have the, Jody, you have the floor.
Sure, Mr. Chair. I make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes of January 28th, which was the tri-board meeting as written.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from January 28th. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
I,
Abstain.
Oh,
And
you're
I'm an aye as well. Any nays? Nay. No nays. Got that, Deirdre?
I did.
Sorry, a little clunky here. I'll get in gear here. Okay, so I'll take a motion
fine.
for the meeting, the minutes for the 18th.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Jody.
I move that we accept the meeting minutes from the tri-board meeting on February 18th as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from February 18th. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Abstain.
abstain.
Any nays? And I abstain as well. I only attended about half the meeting. So Deirdre, let me know if you're all set with that.
Yep, so we have 5-0, 3 abstained.
Okay. Very good. And I just want to take 1 minute, just kind of a general discussion points or just to plant the seed for people to be thinking of. This, I plan to stay on the capital planning committee. I don't know what capacity I'll be staying on the capital planning committee. But there could be an opportunity opening up to have a new representative to that meeting or to that committee, which if you want insight into what the town's, long-term capital planning needs are, that's the one. That's where you get to see the 10-year, the 20-year, the 5-year, the next year, and kind of you get to see the sausage made. It is kind of ugly. So I'm just planting the seed. Nobody needs to, I just asked you to think about it. It really doesn't, it's not a big time crunch. Maybe, pre-meetings, fall and spring meeting for several weeks. There's some good people on that committee in terms of very helpful, very knowledgeable, and you'll definitely get a say. So I plant that seed out there. And the one thing that I was remiss, I should have said right off the bat, should have been the first thing out of my mouth, was to thank Jody for her service to the committee. She was a great chair and she helped out tremendously.
Toast
And
to
I know
Jody.
she's still, yep, to Jody. And I know she'll continue to do that. So thank you very much, Jody.
Well, thanks. It's been a pleasure. And I'm also looking forward to not chairing for a while.
You're still going to be a member though, right?
I will, yes. I just
Okay.
won't have the added responsibilities of being chair. And
No, that's fine. Just making sure.
yep.
You taught me
You'll
a lot,
likely
Miss
still be in
Jody.
charge
Thank
of the
you.
OPEB article as well.
Yeah, she keeps that until OPEB's funded, or she moves out of town.
And I have the stabilization, charts and graphs all saved as well.
All right. I think
Motion to adjourn?
that wraps it up. Next meeting, not quite yet. Don't
Oh.
second that. Just make sure that everybody knows there's a meeting next week on the 3rd, same bat time, same bat channel.
Right,
And,
also, sorry, Nate Maltinsky will participate to discuss the CPC's role in the 61A parcel purchase.
Okay. And so it's not to confuse,
If
maybe
that's
it's me that's
how you-
causing the confusion. It's the conservation committee, right? Not
Yes.
the capital planning committee.
No, it's not, the CPC will be on the 31st,
Community Preservation Committee.
community preservation. Yeah.
Preservation. Yep.
And Mr. Chair, could we ask him also, because there is some conversation around the Lansing Millis train station building, if he's got any information on that, the use of funds, how
The
much funds
update.
are available and all that. I think it's going to come up in conversation because we're presented with two buildings or two properties or two projects at the same moment that are both quite expensive.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Jody.
I just wanted to confirm, is Sean still able to kind of be the liaison with the Community Preservation Committee and able to attend those meetings?
Yes, I am.
That's great. So just be aware we have a resource on our committee who, has been in those meetings as well. So
Thank you, Jody. And thank you, Sean. So, Sean, when do you participate in those meetings?
So there was one last Thursday. They haven't set a definitive date yet. Usually on Thursday nights. So.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to get either Deirdre or I will get heads up to Nate that we've got some questions on Lansing Millis building, as well as the Braun property, and anything else that might be. What was the other one, Craig? Did I get it?
The Lansing Mill, I'm more interested in the amount of funds available. I've
Yep.
sit on the PVC where we've talked about the building itself. I'm just curious what kind of funds we have. That would
Okay.
be, so not to take a position on the building or not, just to let us know. If
Okay.
we've got cash.
Got it. Okay, I will, I heard a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that officially this time.
Now seconded. No discussion heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
10 minutes. Good job.
Thanks, everybody.
thank you, Pete.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
stepping up.
Thanks,
John.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Jody.
Thank you.